incroyable ton français, je croyais que tu étais française. Merci. Tu as un accent français époustouflant. So nice. Qui est le coiffeur? Oh. Rude. Salut, moi c'est Gia. Si vous découvrez ma chaîne, bienvenue, je suis coach d'anglais et oui, il m'arrive de temps en temps de parler un peu français sur cette chaîne. Vous avez été très nombreux à me demander comment est-ce que tu as appris le français. Aujourd'hui, je vous raconte les 3 grandes étapes qui m'ont permis d'atteindre un niveau C1 et surtout ce que vous aussi, vous pouvez en tirer pour progresser en anglais, en français ou dans n'importe quelle langue étrangère. Et restez bien jusqu'à la fin, je vous partagerai le conseil le plus important qui m'a permis d'y arriver. Let's start at the beginning. So, where did my journey start with French? Alright, well, picture this. It is 2017. I'm living in Budapest, I'm having the time of my life, and then I met a French guy. So at some point I decided that it would probably be a good idea to learn French. I remember thinking, well, how hard could it really be? So I started with step 1, the basics. I decided to enroll in an A1 class at l'Institut Français in Budapest. And it went terribly. I really didn't like the class. I hardly ever went. Yeah, it went very badly, but I had bought the book. So I kept the book, and for the rest of the year, I did nothing. I did not learn really any French. I did not improve my French. It wasn't happening. It wasn't gonna happen. So fast forward to 2018, and now I'm living in Seoul in South Korea. And for some reason, I just decide I am going to use this book and I'm going to teach myself French. So that's what I did. And at this stage, I'd already been working as an English teacher for a few years. So I knew how to use this book. I already used books like this all the time in my classroom to teach English. And I went on the dark web, not really. I went on the regular internet and I found the teacher's book. For anyone who doesn't know, student books come with the teacher's book. It basically tells teachers how to teach something, but most importantly, it has the answers. Yeah, I just did the activities, checked the answers, and used my friend, the World Wide Web, to understand anything that wasn't clear. Which books did I use? I used these books. Alter Ego Plus. It's a really standard book. There is nothing special or interesting or amazing about these books. Just happens to be the one I bought. So at the time I had A1. After about 6 months, I went to the A2 book, then B1. I never finished this book and I've never touched the C1 book. So I think that's probably not a method that would please everybody. But it worked for me. And I think that's because I just have a really logical brain. I really like going through step by step and feeling that confidence of understanding like the inner workings and really the base level rules. But I think the most important part of why I was successful is that I was just self-motivated. Doing my lessons, going through the book, it became just a hobby and I really enjoyed doing it. I looked forward to doing it. Every day that I'd planned to do a lesson, I would do a lesson. And yeah, it was really this intrinsic motivation. When I didn't understand something, I went and found the answer myself. So I really felt quite sort of self-sufficient and responsible, I guess, for my own learning. Also, avoiding that information paradox. So instead of being overwhelmed by how many potential resources I could have used to learn French, I just chose one book because I happened to buy it. And I stuck with it. I think that removed a bit of the cognitive overload of just trying to figure out how to learn instead of just focusing on learning. All right, so at this point, I'm going through my language books, I'm learning grammar, it's great, but I have a real problem because when I do listening activities at this stage,
ça c'est nouveau. Et la pièce en fait qui fait le lien entre l'ancien et le nouveau, c'est un écoute fixation.
It's a real struggle. There are some words that I just cannot, I can't hear the sounds of French. I remember I could not hear the difference between Russe and Russe. I had this whole situation. Anyway, just to give you an idea of my level at the time. So I have a real problem. And that's when I knew I needed to bring in step 2, comprehension. So I had to ask myself, what is the best way to do this? And it's with comprehensible input. It is very simply something that you can listen to, maybe watch, and you can understand it, even if your language level is quite low or maybe even 0. And the best type of comprehensible input is your level +1. So a little bit more advanced than your current level. You can understand a base level, and then anything new that comes up, you're not overloaded. You're ready to learn it. And at the time, this, for me, was Peppa Pig. So if you are a beginner in a language or a low level, I personally love Peppa Pig, but I think any children's cartoon works really well. Yeah, so I just started watching Peppa Pig. I love Peppa Pig. I personally think Peppa Pig is hilarious.
It's coming out. Whoa!
Then, of course, Peppa Pig got a bit boring. So when I was ready to level up my comprehension, I started watching French films and series on Netflix. And I often have people ask me in the comments, should I watch something with English subtitles, with French subtitles? Well, what if I told you you could have both? There is a Chrome extension, which I believe is free. There's a paid version that I've never used. It's called Language Reactor. And as long as that series, that movie, has those 2 subtitles loaded in Netflix, you can watch something with both. And you can even hover over words to get their translations. It's very useful. I will link it in the description. And at the same time as this, I started listening to podcasts. Now, my favorite podcast for learning French is Inner French, which is fantastic because the creator of this podcast, Hugo, he talks about basically either interesting cultural topics related to France or current affairs. And that for me was really, really useful because it meant that, first of all, I was able to start hearing some sort of natural phrasing and sort of internalizing that without overthinking it, like memorizing chunks of language. And also I feel that, getting to this level is so important because, why do we learn languages at all? Really, it's to be able to connect with our emotions, to share our opinions, to share our feelings. And so when something kind of does connect with you in that way, I really think it helps with the learning process. This podcast was really, really useful for me. In terms of an equivalent podcast for learning English, I always recommend the podcast Leonardo English, which is very, very similar, but for English learners. The creator, Alistair, talks about current affairs or like interesting cultural topics. Leonardo English has so many free podcasts, so you can listen to a huge amount of his podcasts, but if you do love it and you want access to some of the paid podcasts or the paid content, I do have a promo code for you. It's Anglais 10. It's in the description. And while I was listening to this podcast in particular, I really started to listen to the sounds of French. And something that kept coming to mind, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, but I have to share it. It's truly what I thought. I started to think, why does French kind of have a similar sound to Kermit the Frog? And I don't mean to say that French people are going around talking like Kermit the Frog.
But I haven't said anything yet. Boy, you sure are crazy.
That's not what you sound like. But there was something there, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Eventually, I figured out that it's really about like the placement of the language. French in general is really produced far more in the mouth than English. In English, like really a lot of the language happens much further down. And in French, I sort of realized that I actually need to use this completely different part of my mouth. So that was sort of my journey towards improving my French pronunciation. And you guys know on this channel, I talk about pronunciation. I do think it's really important. I've said it before. I think aiming for like 80% good is a really good goal. And you might not make it there, but I think it's a really good goal. 100%, yeah, you're just gonna disappoint yourself. You're never going to sound like a native speaker. Okay, so I've done my grammar basics step 1. I've got really good comprehension skills, but I have a problem. I still cannot speak French. Many of you might be thinking, Gia, why don't you just speak French to your French partner? It's a really good suggestion. Yeah, I don't know. At this stage, it's become very clear that that's just never going to happen. And maybe there are people watching this who can understand or who can relate to this. Yeah, when you meet someone and you start your relationship in a language, you build up, you have all of your experiences in a certain language, it's really hard to change that language. And yeah, even to this day, my French partner and I do not speak French to one another. Really, much at all. And not only that, my partner is not a language teacher, and it's not particularly romantic to have a language lesson every night. So, everyone seems to agree that building IKEA furniture together is not a good activity for couples. And I would add that trying to teach your partner a language is also not a very romantic or good couples activity. It's not going to happen that way. I need to find a way to speak. So that leads me to step 3, speaking. I have to admit, I was terrified. I was so scared of speaking. So I really was not ready to go out and speak with people. My first experience kind of dabbling in the world of really speaking French to somebody was on italki. So on italki, you can talk to like community tutors and have really not even a lesson, just like a conversation. That was a big step for me. So it was a big confidence boost to show myself that I could have a pretty basic level conversation with somebody in French for 1 hour. And of course, I made a lot of mistakes, but it still wasn't really a real life situation. So I think probably the biggest step for me and the biggest hurdle that I overcame was deciding to join a conversation group. Well, it's 2019 and now I'm living in Tbilisi in the country of Georgia. It's COVID. It's the perfect time to go out and make friends with a group of people. Obviously not, but we were quite protected in Tbilisi, I have to say, from COVID. So I joined a conversation group called Conversation Française, and that was my first experience going into a place and just speaking French with people. And I love that I just realized that no one cares. No one cares about your French. It's fine. And that was really cool because that was the first time that I sort of made friends with whom I only spoke in French. And we never really crossed that barrier of switching to English. And I think that really helped me a lot. But yeah, I really think the biggest hurdle for speaking, and I'm sure many people watching this will agree, is that I think especially as adults, we all have this ego and it's hard to feel like you can't live up to the self-image that you kind of want to have or think that you have. So for example, I'll give you an example of myself. I like to think in general that I'm pretty good at verbalizing my thoughts. I'm really good at articulating what I'm feeling. And I also like to make jokes and I like to make puns and, I like wordplay, that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's kind of humbling when you can't do that in another language. And there's this disconnect between how you want to present yourself and then you're acutely aware of how you are presenting yourself. And that can be really hard to accept. Honestly, I think the world would be a better place if every adult human could have that experience and just sort of lean into it. I've heard many people say, basically that they feel stupid or they feel dumb when they speak a foreign language. And of course, they are not. But yeah, it's really hard to sort of accept that and just let go and accept that you don't need to have the same expectations of yourself in a foreign language. And that's easier said than done, but it's something to think about. So fast forward to 2021, it's time for the final boss. It's gonna happen. I'm moving to France. And so at this point, I feel pretty confident. I can speak French, I can manage a situation, but unfortunately for me, I've decided to move to the south of France. And all my little audios and all my friends that I've made, they're all basically Parisian French. So look, it went well. It was fine, my arrival in France, but it was sort of COVID vaccination time. And I remember I went to get my vaccination and the lovely nurse, she was great, very friendly, south of France. She asked me if I had ever had un cancer du sein. And I was very confused. So I had to kind of relearn a few things after arriving, but that's fine. It's all fun. So I kept learning. I did eventually start working exclusively with French-speaking clients, so obviously that helped my level to keep improving. So as of today, what is my level now? I've never taken a fully academic test, but I did have to take the DCF. There I was given a 16 out of 20, which corresponds to a C1 level, and I completely agree with that. I think that is my level. Do I sound like a native French speaker? No, of course I don't. Sometimes I do receive comments on this channel saying like, wow, I thought you were French, and that's really nice. And look, yeah, maybe sometimes I do for a sentence here or there. But if you sit down with me and you have a conversation, you will notice little pronunciation variations. Call them variations. You'll notice my spicy pronunciation sometimes. Or I might choose to word something in a way that, maybe it's not super natural for a native French speaker. But look, I think I have nice pronunciation and I appreciate the compliments. But I don't believe that I sound like a native French speaker. And of course, keep in mind, guys, when I film these videos, I already know kind of what I want to talk about, so I spend a bit of time thinking about the vocabulary, whatever. There are many, many takes on this camera of me struggling to speak French. We can roll some right now. Whoa! Dédié à George Floyd. Dédié. Qui m'ont permis d'atteindre un niveau d'atteindre. Attendre. I still constantly mess up like the gender of words. A couple of days ago, I was like, in a silly way, trying to use this expression, but I said, c'est dans les vieilles marmottes qu'on fait les meilleures soupes. So, I'm learning things every day. And if you watch this channel, you'll know that I analyze celebrities speaking English. And sometimes people do say like, non, mais comment est-ce que tu oses faire ça? You wouldn't like it if we started analyzing your French. And I want you to hear it from me first. I could not care less. Allez-y. I think it would be so interesting and educative and informative for myself. So please, guys, if you want to rate my French, go for it. So we've seen the 3 steps that I personally went through to perfect my French. But if you take away just one piece of advice from this video, I hope that it's this. If you want to improve your language skills or anything, you need to fall in love with the process or the systems. Don't focus on the end goal. And I really love this quote from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I know that if one more productivity YouTuber makes a video about this book, that we're all going to scream, but it does have some like really nice little knowledge bombs in there. The assumption behind any goal is this: once I reach my goal, then I'll be happy. The problem with a goals first mentality is that you're continually putting happiness off until the next milestone. So what does this mean? Quite simply, if all you care about is, I want to be a C2 English speaker, I want people to think I'm a native Spanish speaker, you're never going to feel happy, and you're basically going to have to force yourself through years of misery to reach that goal. It's unrealistic. You really need to fall in love with the process. Make it a part of who you are, right? Every day, I do a bit of English, or I'm the type of guy or girl that has their phone in English. Like, that's just who I am. And little by little, of course, those things are going to add up and help you to achieve your final goal. You don't need to wait until you've achieved that goal to feel proud or to feel happy. You should try, I know we're all trying, to be happy all the time. Oh my God, did I just cure depression? Okay, sorry. All right, so I hope I'm helping you with my videos. That is why I try to make entertaining-ish videos that teach you things in English without you really feeling like you're learning, because I think that's such a vital part of the learning process. If you like this video and maybe you're on a journey to improve your English, you might like to subscribe to my newsletter where I share all of my deep and interesting thoughts that I've been having about the English language throughout the month. Yeah, it's very good. And if you want to know what that means, the only way to find out is to subscribe. And if you don't think it's good, then you can unsubscribe, but it will be good. If you would like to know why I think it's so important to work on your pronunciation in a foreign language, you should watch this video next. I have linked all of the resources that I've talked about today in the description. You can go and check them out if you're curious, and see you next time.